training is that one thing that gives us some control over a scenario in which we become involved.
Training is beyond just being able to pull the trigger accurately and such. It's more of, for lack of a better term, a mindset as well.
Being uncertain and indecisive is definitely not going to work for you.
You're listening to The Armed Defender's Dilemma by Shawn Vincent, presented by CCW Safe, featuring Don West and Steve Moses, now exploring the 36 lessons for armed defenders. Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Vincent. I'm glad you joined the podcast today. This is lesson 2 of our 36 lessons for armed defenders. Very bluntly, lesson 2 is get training. We're going to have a lot of opportunity today to talk to our own Steve Moses. He is what Shakespeare would describe as having the double spirit of a student and a teacher both. He's a very well-regarded firearms instructor, but he is also an enthusiastic student of some of the most elite firearms and self-defense trainers that there are in the country today. He's going to talk about how having the competence and the confidence to have the basic skills to use your firearm is going to make you better. It's going to free up cognitive space in your mind to deal with the higher level self-defense issues and strategies and tactics and plans that we're going to talk about a lot during these 36 lessons. We also have a chance to talk today to Don West. He is National Trial Counsel for CCW Safe and a veteran criminal defense attorney who's done a ton of self-defense cases, and he sees on the other end what happens when people don't have training and they make mistakes in their self-defense cases, and then on the legal side we have to deal with those to defend them and their right for self-defense. So it's an interesting topic. It's super important. I'm glad you're here. Here's my conversation with Don West and our very own Steve Moses on Get Training. All right, gents. So here we are. We're back again. We are on our 36-month crusade to introduce our listeners, armed defenders and concealed carriers, to our curated list of 36 lessons from armed defenders. This is a list that we've built by working together and talking to all sorts of experts in the self-defense industry, both from a legal side and from a tactical side. This is the benefit of our years and years of experience and study on this topic. And today is lesson number 2, which is get firearms and self-defense training. And Steve, I want to start with you on this because it seems like, well, here's the deal. You don't have to take a lot of training to get a CCW permit in most places. Just the basics. Some places have constitutional carry, and there's probably a lot of people out there who have a firearm who don't have a good sense of even how to operate it, let alone what self-defense laws are. And you're a trainer. You see some of this stuff firsthand. Tell me a little bit about the range of students that you encounter in your professional career as a firearms trainer.
Oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 30 years. I would say the vast majority are novice shooters or people that have been shooting for a long time and don't realize they're novice shooters. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that always kind of I thought is interesting is that, you do not have to get training in order, in some instances you have to have a short exposure to a class if you want to go do concealed carry. But in terms of owning a handgun and running it, you don't have to have training, but you darn sure have to do that in order to get a driver's license. Yeah. And so I'm not saying, it should be mandated, but, very few people that learned how to drive their car on the family farm and then, I'm ready to go, and then they go out and get in heavy traffic in an urban area, it's not going to go well. And so training is that one thing that gives us some control over a scenario in which we become involved. And so a lot of people don't realize that you take a person that goes to the police academy that takes 600 plus hours of training that includes use of force, criminal law, de-escalation, defensive tactics, firearms training. After graduating from the academy, then they're almost always assigned a field training officer because they are deemed too inexperienced to go out and start patrolling on their own. They do have no knowledge on how to safely interact with people that may be potentially dangerous. Well, I mean, if you consider how they are viewed and compared to the average, armed defender, the armed defender is just well underprepared. And without professional training, I don't think you have the skills. And there's a saying that I really like is that the body can't go where the mind has not been. And once you're in that situation in which you're facing a deadly threat or potentially deadly threat, being uncertain and indecisive is definitely not going to work for you. And that's exactly where I was in 1980 when I captured a burglar at 3 a.m. in the morning holding a screwdriver. And at that particular point, as soon as it was over, I made the decision that, oh my God, I almost got killed. I'm going to get training. So I kind of look at it as training's like a seatbelt. I definitely want to put that seatbelt on before I get out in traffic. Otherwise, it's going to do me no good if I need it and it's not there for me.
Don, I got to ask you, have you ever been to, like, say, a family reunion or a big gathering, and there's somebody who wants to take a group picture, and they get the whole family lined up? There's dozens of you out there. You're in the hot sun. Everyone's taking a minute away from having a nice time. And that's when this person decides to figure out how the timer works on their camera. Right? Have you been there? Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
With some of the cases that we've worked on together, haven't you got the impression that the defender was about as familiar with their firearm and self-defense law as this family member was with their camera?
Absolutely. I know people that have gone for some training, at least the training required to get the carry permit and maybe a little bit more, bought a gun and then joined CCW Safe or one of the similar programs out there, put the gun in the glove box or maybe even in their pocket, and then a year and a half later, having never shot it again or never taken any more training, wind up in a situation where they believe they need to use their gun. And it's never gone well. It's just never gone well. There's too many decisions that have to be made in a dynamic situation for them to feel uncomfortable and awkward and uncertain about their own ability just to figure out the right end of the gun and how to get it ready to fire and then fire it if necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't like hearing those stories afterwards. You want to hear those stories beforehand so you can suggest that part of the self-defense plan is certainly understanding the legal boundaries and understanding where and when and under what circumstances you can use lethal force. But as I hope Steve will really emphasize and drill into here in this segment is the importance and the real-world practical value of having that training if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to make those split-second decisions in a self-defense scenario.
Oh, I'd love to do that. I mean, one of the things is I don't think that the average armed defender needs to just completely, jump off in this and train like John Wick. If I think you take somewhere between maybe, over a couple of years, 16 to 24 hours of professional training from someone that is qualified and able to teach you how to deal with these various scenarios, how to operate your gun safely, how to get it out of a holster quickly, how to shoot, relatively accurately. Most of these self-defense shootings, they're measured in feet or just a few yards. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the average distance between let's just say a violent criminal offender and his or her target, maybe 15 feet max, and it may be closer to 5 to 6. And so being able to get that gun out of the holster and use it without having to think about anything but solving the problem at hand, being able to place those rounds accurately where they need to be placed, I think gives people a great ability to, in many instances, manage their fear. And by that, I mean you are less likely to overact and pull your gun out too fast because you didn't know what else to do, and then perhaps use it in such a manner that you actually injure or kill third parties that were not part of the entire confrontation. Didn't say that very well.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so I think that's real important. It's not that hard to do. It just takes a commitment. And then the other thing is, if you want to be a good golf player, you can't take 16 hours of instruction and then be good to go for the next 10 years. You need to do some practice. And the great thing about practicing these defensive skills is that most of it is done in dry practice at home. It's not live fire. That ability to do everything right, even without shooting a round at that particular time, that's where that starts getting engraved, you know, and you start building up those skills. And then, go shoot once a month, shoot 50 rounds, confirm that everything's going good, and then go back to it. And I tell you what, it's one of the most freeing things that a person can learn. And one of the things that I really like and I've really enjoyed about teaching people is watching them walk away feeling like, okay, I'm empowered. If I do my part, I can handle almost anything that's going to be thrown up against me.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that confidence. Let's talk about that for a minute. There's just one thing that you said a minute or two back that I think is like the basic lesson when it comes to why you'd want training, and that is the confidence to draw your firearm and put a bullet on target if you need to, without having to think about every step along the way, right? So there's this muscle memory that comes in when anyone does something physical, whether it's playing the guitar or playing pickleball, right, Don? That certain motions you get to the point where you're not thinking about them, your body just does them. But if you don't know that, then it's really awkward. And so when you're facing an attacker and you're actually getting to the point where you are in fear for your life or for great bodily harm, that's not the time to start fumbling with your cover garment or
That's right.
have questions about how competently are you going to get that firearm out, and is it even operational yet? And can you put some bullets where you need to?
Yes.
So you've told me time and time again that a lot of times inexperienced armed defenders will pull the firearm too soon because they don't know if they're going to be able to get it out in time later, and then the introduction of a firearm to a potentially explosive confrontation then elevates it. For one, instead of de-escalating, you've just escalated this confrontation. And if you don't make that gesture competently and confidently, then this aggressor, if they're a seasoned criminal who handles firearms themselves, will know that you're, uh, let's just say, chicken shit with that gun, if that's fair to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you're too indecisive and concerned about everything that might happen, you may not go for that gun soon enough, and then you become that victim. And
Yeah.
just think of all those instances where people have been threatened and they pulled their gun out, and the criminal started walking towards them, closing distance, going, "What are you going to do? Shoot me? You going to kill me?" And I mean, that is a conundrum. The better trained and skilled you are with having experience in envisioning what some of these scenarios might look like, and even maybe doing some force on force or role playing, okay, that often allows you to delay the time that you need to go ahead and bring that gun into play. It may allow you more time to break contact, or it may help create that distance that you need to do
Yeah.
that. So there's just no downside to training that I can see of.
Yeah, I've seen those scenarios, Steve, actually. I take a lot of phone calls from people that are involved in self-defense incidents. Many of them are relatively minor in the legal sense of things. Maybe somebody didn't get arrested or got arrested for a relatively minor offense. But I have actually seen more than one scenario where, as it was described to me, the attacker did exactly what you said, challenged, even mocked the defender. What are you going to do? Shoot me? Oh, you got a gun? Big guy, right? Go ahead. And I even had one case where the person continued to approach, disarmed the defender, knocked him to the ground, took his gun, and then waited for the police. I mean, he had no intention of actually taking his gun and using it. He was just, I guess, asserting dominance, or didn't think this guy in a second would actually use it, went so far as to take his gun and knock him down and sit there. So I see that stuff from my standpoint, taking calls, I guess you call them live action calls almost, hearing it right afterwards. And it shocks me, that that's happened more than once.
Yeah, we looked at a case in the news where somebody tracked down a stolen laptop or something with an AirPod, right? And went to this mall parking lot with a firearm to confront the thief, and the thief attacked them, took their gun, and then shot them with it and fled the scene. So that's a bad, one thing that we're looking for in a self-defense scenario is to have a positive outcome, which is one where you don't get killed or horrifically disabled and wounded, and you don't go to prison for it, right? That's what we're looking for. Our first lesson is to break contact. So as soon as you can stop that fight, keep it from happening or end it, and walk away, that's the best way to win it, as Don told us last time.
And Steve, don't you think too, since we emphasize the notion of de-escalation, breaking contact, employing less lethal options if you have them, the more competent and confident that you are in your skills with a firearm, that you can get at it and use it if necessary, that it gives you a little more room to consider less lethal options, a little more opportunity to analyze whether you can, and if you have a less lethal option, to go ahead and try that, knowing that if it doesn't work, you still have other options.
Yeah, and another thing is, if you want to take this training a little bit further, and I highly recommend it, is there are some instructors out there that basically have trained under such people as Craig Douglas, Paul Sharp, Cecil Birch. There's a number of others that will show you how you can block a sucker punch at short range, which is what happens in a lot of instances. The person walks up there, turns a little bit to the side, and then sucker punches that person. So if you know that this guy does come up here and suddenly tries to punch me, I can survive that and get myself into a position where I can either break contact or, if necessary, seriously injure this guy. That's also a great aid. And Craig also teaches a technique. I think they call it the eye thump. We call it the face thump, just because we work with church security teams. Is basically you almost use your hand like a can of OC. 100% of the objective is to cause that person to close their eyes momentarily and allow you to create distance. So there's a lot of wonderful stuff out there, and once you experience it and you see instances where other people have used it successfully, it is very empowering.
So the first lesson I got from you on the value of training is just, if you're competent and confident with your firearm, then you won't go to it too early, and you won't wait too late before it's too late to use it. And God forbid, Don, you're not going to have it taken away from you and used against you, right? Second step, though, to what you guys both just said, that is the training gives you more intermediary options, right? If you're not competent with your firearm, a defensive display is not really in your toolbox, right? Or if you're not familiar, you talked, Steve, about time and distance, right?
Hmm.
And I know I heard a term the other day I liked. If you can't sway, delay, right? So if you can't convince the guy to stop approaching you, but you can make it take longer, then a little space, a little time, a little distance that allows you to create a plan. Really, we like to use the word disambiguate the attacker's intentions. Use verbal cues. Use other things that might allow you to get away or stop the fight. But you have that, and that's all part of training, right? Firearms self defense training is not just going to the range and being able to put holes in paper about
Oh, no.
8 to 15 feet in front of you, right? It's about how you think about it, how you de-escalation, avoidance. It's about, to your point, if you sometimes I tell folks if they're fit enough, knowing how to take a punch and knowing how your body reacts to that's a good thing to do. Like you talked about, you know, the training you get on how to sort of protect yourself from a sucker punch. If you know that you can handle a little tussle before you have to use a firearm or respond to that, that's more confidence and it gives you more options, right?
Right, and it's just a simple non-diagnostic response in which basically you're just basically, for lack of a better term, I am building a helmet out of my meat and bone in my arms. So no matter where that punch lands, the chances are that it's going to knock me down or knock me out are way reduced. So I don't care what angle it's coming from. If I do it correctly, it greatly, reduces the chances that that's going to happen. And in regard to also devising a plan, what I prefer to do and encourage students to do is you have a Rolodex of plans already inside your brain. And so what you're doing is you're going through that Rolodex. Okay, what is the best response? Not reaction. What is the best response? I'm defaulting to that, and then I may need to, go to a different one in case that one fails, because sometimes they do. But it's like, oh, I know what I need to do here, and I'm going to do it. And that's one of the things that I found during my 18 years in law enforcement. Um, Most of the excitement, if you will, occurred when we were on a team and we'd go in and do high risk, what they called writs of possession in houses in which, there was somebody that was considered to be violent, armed. They were part of a local militia operation. And so we trained, we trained, we trained. And then when something did happen, you knew what to do. You didn't even think about it. You just acted upon it. And as concealed carriers, you don't need a big litany of plans like that. You need, a few, basic plans, maybe 4 or 5, something like that. But if you think about that, you train, and if this guy does this, I'm going to do this, then
Sure.
you're well ahead in
And
the
a
game.
good trainer is going to give you some real world scenarios where these are the kind of common things that you might have to think about, and here's uh, a response to that you can put in your toolbox, right? And so then, just like the muscle memory on using the machine, the if you have sort of a mental memory of what your plans are, then you don't have to stop and devise them in the heat of the moment when there's a crisis. You can fall back on your training, and that again brings the confidence in.
And I tell you the other thing too. It's like, okay, well, where am I going to find these trainers? Well, here's the thing. It may take more than one, and it may take 32 hours instead of 16 hours because you didn't get with the right person,
Yeah.
at first, or he didn't have all the answers that you were looking for.
Well, I
But
tell
you
you,
can.
you've brought us a lot of folks that are good trainers, and
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know one good trainer who would tell you that they're the only one that you'll ever need.
Oh no.
Everyone finds their
Mhm.
niche and they specialize, and those guys get lots of training from lots of different people and
Right,
gals. Yeah.
right. And a good trainer will go say, hey, go train with other persons. Go out there because this is just one way of doing it, and someone else may have a slightly different way, or they may have a way of explaining it that makes more sense to you, or they may show you how to do that a little bit more efficiently or effectively.
I'll just mention my 2 cents worth on the broader concept of training, because I would think included within that broader concept are just learning and thinking about things that will make you safer. The notion of situational awareness, the idea of not walking down the street looking at your phone and not paying attention to what's around you, the decision not to go out at 1 o'clock in the morning and walk 6 blocks in poorly lighted conditions to the club that you're going to. Just stuff that's really common sense, but I think that's incorporated in the training notion, isn't it, Steve? I think the trainers will tell you training is beyond just being able to pull the trigger accurately and such. It's more of, for lack of a better term, a mindset as well.
The good ones will do exactly that, and at the risk of sounding a little bit arrogant here, I think this podcast right here is an example of training, because we're putting forth information for people to consider that may not have considered it before. And I guarantee you that with the advice you guys are putting out, people are being exposed to stuff that they can use tomorrow. And we may also just be kind of like, okay, yeah, all right, we're piquing their interest a little bit and saying, hey guys, why don't you go and look for training like this or consider training like this? Because if you are willing to put in the work on the internet, there's a ton of information in there, and there's 100,000 tons of bad information in there. So
Well,
choose
yeah,
wisely.
There is. Don, I want to wrap up with a story that you shared with me about a well-regarded professional in the industry that we all three have met, who has a very fast draw, very good shooter, very competent, and also in super great shape and can handle somebody in a fight if he had to, right? And he approached a young guy on the street who was causing some problems to see if he could get him to go away. And this was a kid who was somehow probably newly acquired a firearm, and he displayed it and said, I could shoot you right now. And this person we know knew that he could get the trump on this guy if he needed to. He knew that he had control of the situation still, even though this punk kid had a firearm in his hand and was threatening to use it. But he had the good sense to know that this guy's probably just all bluster, and he had the training and he had the confidence and the competence in his skills where he knew he could wait to see if this gets worse before he has to draw and kill this poor kid who's just being an asshole, right? And
Yes.
so I think,
Yeah.
right, it allowed him to be in control of the situation and just make better decisions. And this is a guy, by the way, who's well versed in what the actual consequences of using deadly force would be, and knew that just for his own inconvenience, it's not worth getting involved
Yeah,
in this.
it's all of that stuff juxtaposed against an objective view of this scenario. If you had video of this scenario and saw it unfold, as an objective observer, you would say this guy was threatened with a firearm and absolutely had the legal right to use deadly force in response. So that's sort of the threshold here. But because of the training and the experience, and frankly, the good sense and judgment and the ability to be calm under stress, which I think we're talking about as a byproduct, maybe a direct product of training, right, Steve? The idea when you're confident in your skills, then you are more calm and able to handle the stress of something because you know what you can do and what you can't do. So in that scenario that you described, Shawn, when this kid trying to be a bully and just trying to, in his own way, this threat, when he said, I could shoot you, the fellow on the other end of that said to himself, first of all, no, you can't.
Right.
He knew that he really wouldn't be able to, even though he thought he would, and that he had the skill and the ability and the good judgment how to avoid being shot. And unfortunately for this kid who never knows that the guy he pulled the gun on just saved his life.
Just saved his life.
Just
Yeah.
saved his life. Yeah.
That is brilliant. And we can kind of wrap it up on that, Steve. I think having good training actually gives you the ability to save somebody's life who might have otherwise given you justification to shoot him.
Absolutely. It's a
because
win-win.
you can do that, and that's what we call a good outcome. If you can both walk away with it, no one gets hurt, and no one goes to jail, and nobody's dead. All right, everybody, that's the podcast for today. I'm super glad you joined us. Next time, we are going to talk about lesson number 3, which is understand the legal consequences of self-defense. Until then, be smart, stay safe, and take care.
The body can't go where the mind has not been